It's my privilege to introduce the student speaker from the class of 2016, Ivy White. I was fortunate enough to teach Ivy torts during her first year of law school, and I'm going to read you an email she sent me then. Hi, Dean Timmons. May I please bring my daughter to class today? We can sit in the very back, and I promise to keep her absolutely silent. She's got something funky going on with her eye, but I don't want to miss class. It's not airborne or anything. It just looks a little gross. To me, that email says a lot about Ivy. She's straightforward, dedicated, and determined to meet her commitments, both to the study and practice of law and to her family, which includes a husband and 4 children. Along the way, Ivy has found time somehow to compete as a member of the Student Trial Lawyers Association, to extern with 2 judges, to clerk for 2 law firms, to serve as a graduate research assistant, and incidentally, to earn an M.B.A. along with her JD. I am honored to present to you today the student speaker from the class of 2016, chosen by a committee of her fellow graduates, Ivy White.
So in my mind, I was going to do this without crying, but Dean Timmons didn't even let me get up before I started to cry, so I'll try to get through this. My road to and through law school was a little different from many of my classmates, so I am truly honored to have the opportunity to not only represent my class, but also to share some of my story with you. A few years ago, I came across a quote that would change the way I looked at my life and my future career forever. Don't you dare shrink yourself for someone else's comfort. Do not become small for people who refuse to grow. I spent a good part of my life shrinking myself and making myself small. I had always wanted to go to law school, but I kept doubting myself. In 2009, just before I finally graduated from undergrad, I met Dr. Cheryl Jester George at a graduate stool fair. For those of you who don't know Dr. George, she is our director of admissions. I told her I was interested in law school, but I had a job, and I had kids, and a husband, and had a few other excuses. And she asked me why I devalued myself so much. She told me that I should be proud of the things that I had described as disadvantages because they make me who I am. That really resonated with me, but it still took 2 more years of me continuing to go to these law school events and seeing her recognizing smile before she finally pulled me to the side and said, "You didn't apply yet. You don't want to go to law school, because if you did, you would just do it." And she was right. And what I learned from her that day is best stated in another quote that helped me get through law school and studying for the bar. The dream is free, but the hustle is sold separately. No matter how much you dream, until you just do it, nothing's going to happen. So I finally stopped shrinking myself, and I just did it. I applied to Georgia State Law and only to Georgia State Law because I wanted to go to a school where the things that made me diverse were seen as assets, not liabilities. And I decided if I wasn't accepted into Georgia State, then I just wasn't meant to go to law school. So here I am, 7 years after Dr. George essentially told me to stop shrinking myself. 4 years after I added some hustle to that dream and just did it. And 3 years after being accepted into the most challenging yet rewarding experience of my life. Yes, childbirth is tough, but I'm telling you, law school is harder. Here I am, no longer shrinking myself as a graduate with a Juris Doctor, a Master's of Business Administration, those same 4 kids, that same husband, and a job. Here we all are. People tell me my story is inspiring, but it's truly a testament to my family, my classmates, and the faculty and staff of Georgia State. Many of my classmates would say to me, "I don't know how you do it," but I look at them and I say the same thing. I am one of many parents here, some single parents, some who became parents during law school, and some who have suffered unspeakable loss, and they all just did it. Many of my classmates worked full-time or part-time jobs and went to class right after work. Many of my classmates have worked extremely hard to be leaders in their student organizations or to be at the top of the class. I'm going to be honest with you. After experiencing the rule against perpetuities on Professor Mattingly's final and the 800,000 issues on Professor Kinkoff's con law exam, I came to terms with the fact that the top of the class just wasn't going to be my thing. I could go on and on about how we inspire each other with our diverse experiences. And we all know that that's not something you find at every law school, and I'd say most law schools. But Georgia State cultivates it. So thank you, Dean Kamenshine, for setting the tone. Thank you, Dean Sobelson, for expecting the best not only from us, but also for us. You're like that parent who's really hard on us, but you're always there when we need you. Dean Sino, you have some big shoes to fill, but if you can teach me contract damages, I'm convinced you can do anything. Thank you, Dean Timmons, for being such a caring dean, a dynamic professor, and most notable for me, an unapologetic mother and Diet Coke fan. For those of you who had Dean Timmons, you know what I'm talking about. And thank you, Dean Hensel. Although I didn't get the opportunity to have you as a professor, I've heard your reputation for not only being a brilliant and awesome professor, but also for being instrumental in encouraging many of my classmates through their lowest points in law school. Thank you to all of the deans, professors, staff, and thank you to my classmates for making Georgia State a school which I couldn't be prouder to call my alma mater. I technically graduated in December, so I've already taken the February bar, and on the first day of bar prep, we are assigned an introductory video. In the video, they talk about what an accomplishment it is to even be studying for the bar. And it really made me take a step back and realize how honored and privileged I was in that moment. It's ironic because not too many years ago, privileged is one of the last words I would have used to describe myself. I was pregnant with my first child at 19 years old, and several times I needed Medicaid and food stamps to make ends meet. I spent so much of my life seeing myself as a disappointment, a statistic. And now it's overwhelming to see myself as privileged. Despite the sweat, despite the sweat and tears of law school and bar prep, we should all feel honored and privileged. Many people don't graduate from high school. Many don't make it through college. Most are not even accepted into law school. The vast majority of people do not hold a Juris Doctor. And for those of us with a JD and an M.B.A. or some other joint degree, We are even fewer and farther between. So, at some point between complaining about law school and complaining about the bar, be sure that you take a step back and absorb all that we've accomplished and be humbled by those accomplishments. And then be humbled by those around us who held us up during this process. I know my time is probably up, but I cannot sit down without thanking my husband, who seemed not to mind when I made him sleep alone because I was pulling all-nighters, who pretended to be interested when I walked around like a mad scientist explaining things he cared nothing about, like actus reus or mens rea, who worked 60 and 70-hour weeks to support our family when I either couldn't work or could only work part-time, and who held me when I cried from being overwhelmed and exhausted because law school just was not designed for people like me, but who never let me quit. And thank you to my kids, Donnell, Tycee, Craig Jr., and Bailey, for being my judges when I was preparing for oral arguments and interrupting me with some surprisingly good questions. For playing my witnesses when I was practicing directs and cross-examinations for my mock trial competitions. For trying really hard to read me my cases for class while I was cooking dinner because there just wasn't enough time in the day for me to do both. And for being my comic relief because you all rescued me from being swallowed up by this law school experience. I hope we all take the opportunity to be humbled by those around us who helped us cross this finish line and who loved and supported us even when we didn't answer the phone or return phone calls. So on behalf of all of the graduates, we thank you, parents, grandparents, significant others, children, family, and friends. And again, thank you, Georgia State Law faculty and staff. I'm not done yet. I wish all of my classmates the very best of luck on the bar and in your careers. And I'll leave you with those little quotes as we go forward in life. Don't ever shrink yourself or make yourself small, because the dream is free, but the hustle is sold separately. So just do it.